Hey ladies, are you looking for a podcast that brazenly advances women's political interests? Check out Female Political Strategy.
Female Political Strategy is a politics-focused spinoff brought to you by the ruthless minds behind the female dating strategy. I'm Lilith, a socialist.
Elle, a conservative.
And I'm Ro, and I'm politically non-binary.
Join us as we shatter male-crafted narratives on all sides of the political spectrum and spearhead our agenda for a female-focused future.
Tune in to Female Political Strategy wherever podcasts are distributed.
You can also find us on Twitter @FemalePolitical. Until next time, Team Female. Hey Queens, are you ready to level up? Then join our Patreon at patreon.com/the female dating strategy, where you can find weekly bonus content and FDS commentary on all the latest pop culture, relationship, and dating news. If you just want to listen to the extra bonus content, we have the Lurker Mode tier on our Patreon. If you want merchandise, access to the private FDS Patreon Discord, which also includes a monthly book club with FDS and feminist-themed books, as well as FDS merchandise, t-shirts, mugs, and the opportunity to discuss topics with the FDS podcast queens live, as well as submit stories for our Rose to Scrote Queen and Gnosis discussions on the podcast itself. So if you'd like access to all this and more, visit our Patreon at patreon.com/the female dating strategy. What's up, Queens? Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm Ro.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Lilith.
Today we're attacking the Tinder Swindler.
Dun, dun, dun.
This has been blowing up on social media, and I finally watched it last night.
I want to say straight out the gates, if these women had FDS, they wouldn't have been scammed. They would have never fallen for this shit. I see this as a story of why FDS is necessary, and as a course correction for society for women.
I don't blame them for following victim to the scam so much as I think that, yes, like we said before, society kind of sets women up to be exploited like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, these women were set up to fail by liberal media, by,
the Disneyfication of our romantic encounters, which is not lining up with the realities of dating in this market, specifically on dating on things like Tinder, which requires vetting.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what also stood out the most is that we often think, like when we think of romance scams, we often think of like a 70-year-old woman, falling in love with a Nigerian prince in Africa, who completely scams her. But these were women who were conventionally attractive. They were clearly quite successful. They were intelligent,
yeah.
And they still got scammed. So, I've seen, across like social media saying, people saying, oh, that will never happen to me. And it's like, but these aren't your typical victims of a romance scam. They're, if anything, they're the complete opposite. And I think it's important to bear in mind that, believing that something won't happen to you, it brings the possibility of you having a massive blind spot, because I'm sure these women thought the same thing as well.
Yeah.
I will say from my perspective, like his scamming skills were actually kind of mid.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was a very, very elaborate scam. Like he clearly,
the scam was elaborate. His like way that he lured the women in was pretty mid.
It was pretty mid, but if you think about like all the tenets and all the aspects of the scam, it was very, very well, thought out. Like he'd thought of every scenario, like any like resistance they came up with, he had an answer for it.
Yeah, that's true. So, let's give a brief synopsis of what happened. Obviously, spoiler alert. The Netflix show revolves around 3 women who were scammed by this guy named Simon Levive. And
fake name.
Fake name. He actually, I won't get to the big reveal till after the synopsis. So the first girl, Cecilia, she meets him in London on Tinder. He says he's flying out of London the next day and then tells her to come to meet him at a fancy 5-star hotel for dinner and drinks, right? So they have dinner and drinks. Eventually, he invites her off on his private jet to fly out of London. During this flight out of London, she meets his baby mama, the mother of his 2-year-old child, where the baby mama apparently says that Simon's a really good guy. He takes care of us. I'm glad you guys are dating. Really butters her up. Then they go to, where did they fly to again? I want to say
it was Bulgaria.
Bulgaria. They flew to Bulgaria. They end up having sex. During sex, she notices he has scratches on his back. And
yeah.
he makes up this story, who knows if this is true or not, that he was in a South African prison and he was discriminated against because he was Jewish, and that like someone tried to antagonize him on his diamond business, etc. She flies back home. He basically says like, oh, the night's over. I think he made up some fake business he had to do. So she flies back home, and then she's like, oh, I'm all worried if he's gonna see me again. And then eventually he does start to see her, or at least text her and say like, oh,
They
I
have a
love
relationship,
you.
yeah.
They're in a relationship. I want you to be my girlfriend, etc. And then he proceeds to fly her all around the world, like wining a diner, etc. And eventually claims that one of his bodyguards, he says he's first of all, he says he's the son of a diamond billionaire. And that's how he gets all of his money to wine and dine women. So he claims that somebody's after his family. He has enemies, so to speak, and that they attacked his bodyguard, that he can no longer use his own credit cards, and he can only, like, he's going into hiding. So then he asks her to open a credit card and open a loan for him so that he can still conduct his business, and that he'll pay her back. Which, of course, he doesn't pay her back. Yeah.
And the wildest thing is he sends her like fake bank transfers saying that he did pay her back, and then just gaslights her when the money doesn't come through, kind of thing. And she just keeps taking out loans thinking he's going to pay her back, and he never does.
Yeah, and what's also even crazier is, when she's getting concerned that she's hitting her credit limits and, can't, because I even thought to myself, how is she getting these loans? But then he actually employed her and sent her fake pay slips. Now, I don't think she got the money that was on the pay slips because it said she was being paid like $90,000 a month. And obviously then, if you have that as proof of income in the UK, that increases
They'll give you whatever credit you want, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, if you're earning $90,000 a month.
Yeah, so that's what's crazy. Yeah, so she's able to take out $250,000 worth of loans. Personal
That's
loans
insane.
and credit card limits. So, yeah, pretty insane. So obviously she never sees a dime of that money back from Simon, who eventually disappears, breaks up with her, and then runs the same scam on a woman named Pernilla. Although they're not romantically involved, they're just friends. He basically runs the same thing with Pernilla, pretends that his friend Peter is being attacked. He has to go into hiding, says says he wants them to move in together, asks to borrow money, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the scam.
Yeah, and then at the end, okay, Queen Eileen, she ends up scamming him back. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's dissect this story. So first of all, let's talk about like what were some of the early tells. What are some of the red flags in the early phases that stood out to you?
I think for me, it was in the interview with Cecilia, who was the woman from Norway, and she was talking about her experiences of online dating, and she said that that she used to idolize stories like Beauty and the Beast, where basically a handsome prince would come and save a woman from, the life that she was living. Yeah. So it was clear that she was almost like looking for a guy to just completely sweep her off her feet. And I remember watching it and seeing like when she was talking about Simon in the early days about how he took her to a fancy restaurant in, London. I think it was even for a coffee date as well, which is just definitely sus. Anyway,
yeah, billionaire taking you on a coffee date? Come on.
But then when she was talking about the early days when he, promised that they would get a flat together in London and, gave her like a $15,000 a month rent limit, I could see like her eyes were lighting up, and it was clear that she had fully bought into the Disney fantasy where, she wasn't like a poor old maid, but, in comparison to the wealth she thought that Simon had, she basically was. And just expecting this super rich billionaire to sweep her off her feet. And unfortunately, Disney's conditioning, it makes, women extremely vulnerable to this idea that there is a guy who's going to be on a white horse and he will, come to save you from your problems. It also, it also feeds the idea that a woman has to basically struggle and suffer, to get the love and relationship that she wants from the man she's into. If we look at Beauty and the Beast, for example, she had to cohabit with a literal piece of shit beast until he saw the light and started treating her well, and they lived happily ever after. It's all nonsense. Real life isn't like that. If you meet a rich beast in real life, they will remain a rich beast. There's no happy ending to that story ever.
So I think too, he tried to impress her with his wealth, because I think she did say like it was the first time she had like caviar and all those types of really fancy things. So
and been on a private jet as well. It's the first time she'd done that.
So, and also she's from a small town, so I imagine there's probably not a lot of elaborate wealth around there, or at least like not as many blatant scammers.
I thought she's from Oslo.
She said she was a small town girl.
No, I think her mom lived in Oslo. But maybe she's from a small... Mom lived in Oslo? Because she remember saying, well, I thought I was a small town girl. Oh, okay. And like she gets... Maybe. Remember that part? So I thought... I don't know how big Oslo is, or like... It's like their capital, right?
No, but I mean, she might be saying I'm outside of Oslo.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
Meaning like a person... They say they're from Oslo, but they could be like from someplace outside of there. But the way...
Maybe, but she seemed very naive and very overly trusting. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, that pretty much makes me feel like maybe she didn't grow up in a more city, because like if you grew up in like New York, for example, people are trying... I feel like anybody from New York...
People are trying to scam you all the time, yeah.
People would have seen this shit, like, girl, he running credit card scams, like for what it was within like 2 minutes. Whereas like a woman who wasn't used to men doing that sort of thing might have like fallen for that. So I'll say my immediate red flags were the two biggest ones. If there's anything that you learn from this podcast, learn these two dating tips. If a man tries to create a sense of urgency by saying, oh, I have to meet up tonight because I'm leaving town, don't go. Like, it's either love bombing, it's either bullshit, he's trying to get you into bed, etc. Always suggest another time. Number 2, never go to a second location with a man on a first date. This is like kidnapping rules apply here when you're on a first date with a guy. You know how they say if you're being abducted or kidnapped, like fight for your life before you get to that second location, because if you get there, like it's over pretty much. I think those rules very much apply on a first date. So don't go to a second location with him. Always wrap up the night at the first location. And this is especially important. This is why we also say don't do bar dates, because a lot of times guys try to do the bar crawl thing where you go to like several different bars and then try to make it look... First of all, even if he's not a scam artist, it creates a false sense of intimacy. And a lot of the pickup artists and the red pillars suggest taking women to multiple locations on the same date, because it makes it seem like you're taking them on multiple days and speeds up the intimacy process. And it's a part of love bombing you.
To try to get you to fuck on the first date.
Yeah. Try to get you to fuck on the first date, but also like love bombing you long term if they're trying to scam you, right? Like, which some of these guys are. So the multiple locations thing is always a red flag, as well as the like false sense of urgency. So immediately, the fact that she not only like went that same day to go see the guy and then like went on a jet plane like to some unknown country with the guy she just met, even after her friends told her like, sis, he could be a literal kidnapper. Like, you could be out here being trafficked. And she was like, YOLO, I'm going anywhere. I'm like, that will really, really, really get you messed up either way. So
yeah, listen to your friends, sis. Like, your friends had some common sense. Like,
yeah, those two things right there, I was like, those two are probably the biggest and massive red flags when it comes to dating on an app. False sense of urgency, a guy trying to take you to a second location.
Yeah. I want to say the first thing that stood out to me was actually the fact that he's a single dad. And this, hear me out, because I think that single dads should be treated like pariahs, especially if their children are very young. First of all, if I was in that situation with the baby mama, I would have asked a lot more questions about why they broke up. Why didn't it work out, right? Because most of the time, most women with young children generally don't leave the father of their child unless there's something seriously wrong. It's not like, in the early phases of dating where it's like, oh, we just didn't have any chemistry anymore. Or, oh, I just didn't think we were compatible, or something like small and situational like that. No, generally, once you have a child together, most of the time the women in that situation are pretty motivated to keep it up unless there's something seriously wrong with him. In the situation with a single dad, either he left her or she left him. For her to leave him, he probably did something really bad. And for him to leave her, that means he's just a deadbeat who just like broke up with his baby mama with like a young child, right? So either scenario, whether it's his fault or her fault, or not fault, but like whether he broke up with her, she broke up with him, doesn't matter. Both of these situations are red flags. So single dads of young children, to me, unless he's like a widower, That is a red flag to me. So I would have definitely asked more questions with the baby mama. And bringing your baby mama with you on a first date with another woman?
A date.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Even that, I wouldn't even bother asking her anything. I would just turn around and walk out. Like, who brings their ex and child on a first date? And even the fact I'm not actually sure if he actually has kids or not, but the fact he brought a child on a first date as well, a massive red flag. Any single parent or any responsible parent would not think that's appropriate behavior to be introducing your young child to different people that you're dating, like, so early on the first date.
Yeah, it's weird. If you are dating and you have kids, most of the people I know who are generally like sane and good parents, they want to hold off on introducing their child to their date because they want to make sure that they're in it for the long haul, that they have a good relationship and so on. It's not nice to introduce a child to a potential parental figure or something if they're not going to be around for very long, right? Like, I think in fact, like, some of the most toxic people I've met who are parents who date, they introduce their kids to their dates really early on. It's like this revolving door. It ends up, creating issues for the child in terms of like attachment and so on, right? So I definitely would have judged this guy for bringing his child on a first date. That's weird.
For sure.
Though that was like the early red flags.
So I feel like if she had said, no, I can't meet you today, when he first tried to say like, oh, I'm going to be leaving the next day, then he probably would have just abandoned ship and not talked to her after that.
Yeah. Which
I need people to understand, like, that is a compliance test. And if they stop talking to you, that's probably a good thing. Because I'm like, best case scenario, let's say he actually is serious about leaving, then who knows when you'll see him, months from now anyways. So, and then secondly, like, you'll be able to weed out like how interested he is in it. If you just say like, oh, I can't make it right now, how about next week? Or how about when you come back to London or whatever, like, give him another option and then see how he responds. He'll either completely, if he's a scam artist, you fail the compliance test, right?
Yeah.
Which you want to do. If he's like a decent guy and he actually wants to see you, he'll be interested in scheduling for some other time. And then secondly, if you don't go to the second location, also a compliance test, because if you refuse to go to the second location, then he's realizing like, oh, well, she just ate my food and left, right? And he'll start to like panic because you haven't given the indicators that like his investment was worth something in the future. Yeah,
I want to say like the best piece of dating advice, and I sort of practiced this even before the Lundy Bancroft episode, but Lundy mentioned this in the Lundy Bancroft episode, how one of the best ways of vetting for abusive or just like shitty men in general is just being less cooperative. So saying like, oh no, I don't want to go to that location, or, oh, let's meet at a different time or something like that. And so I find I notice this a lot with women when they meet a guy, especially if he's a guy that they perceive to be high value, like he's really rich, really attractive, or has other qualities that she really likes and that are rare in men. A lot of times women are just, they get into this mentality like, oh, if I set a boundary, if I say no, or if I say I want to meet at a different time, he might lose interest in me and then I'll miss out on a really great guy. And it's like, ladies, like, that's not the mentality that you should be having when dating. Because here's the thing, if he is a good guy, if he's actually interested in you, and I do this all the time where I'll just like, even if I'm not actually busy, I'll just say that I'm busy just to make him come up with a different time. And most of the time, like, they'll come back with a counter offer, right? And they'll try to make it work if they're interested in you, right? But the shitty guys, the scam artists, keep in mind that con artists, they're doing their own sort of vetting, right? Like, they're trying to see how gullible you are, whether you're willing to go along with what they say. And by, going on the second location, by going along with all their tactics, that tells him, oh, this is a really valuable or good mark kind of thing.
Yeah. So the next part of the whole scam, then she gets to Bulgaria with him and has sex with him. And then he has all these scars on his back and then says he went to prison in North Africa.
South Africa.
Was it South Africa? Says he went to prison in South Africa. Okay, so like massive glaring red flag.
Went to
this
jail.
man's been to prison. Yeah. For like kind of undisclosed reasons he's saying is discrimination against him because he's Jewish.
If you would like to hear our thoughts about women dating prisoners, please check out our Patreon episode, 10 Tips on Dating a Prisoner. It's actually been released to the general public, but we roast the concept of dating a prisoner or an ex-con because juice ain't worth the squeeze. That should have been another red flag.
This is another thing. I get a lot of men coming up with these sob stories or, oh, I'm discriminated, him saying that he was discriminated against for being Jewish and so on. I mean, a lot of women, because we're very compassionate, will hear that and be like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, kind of thing. And I've fallen for that, like, so many times in my life, that kind of emotional manipulation, right? And it's just made me, a lot more like savvy and much more strict with my emotional boundaries, right? I get suspicious of men who tell me sad stories or anything that makes me feel like, aw, poor baby. Anything that makes me have that feeling early on, I start to go into pattern recognition mode.
And another thing as well is that a high value man, he wouldn't find it appropriate to disclose that so early on to a woman he's just met. Even if, everybody comes with, baggage and their own traumas, but disclosing that on the first date, trying to make you feel sorry for him is a common tactic of abusive men. Because that is also how they emotionally hook you in. And if you couple that with, women who have sort of a savior complex, then you've got a really, really, then you've got a set up for a very, very bad relationship dynamic.
Yeah. There's actually a really good book on this called The Sociopath Next Door by Martha Stout. Highly recommend reading it as a woman. It'll help you become more savvy about the tells of like psychopaths and sociopaths. And one of the biggest ones, in fact, the number one tell that she says is him trying to make you feel bad for him, right? A lot of people think that, oh, a sociopath or a psychopath, they're going to go out there and try to make you afraid of them. That's actually not true. Most of the time, their first thing is to try to rope you in using emotional manipulation, try to get you to feel bad for them, to lower your guard. And it makes you much more like mentally pliable, when you feel bad for them.
If you look at Ted Bundy's victims, for example, he managed to lure them in by pretending to be disabled.
Yeah, pretending to be injured, yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that he went to prison and then the vague excuse that he was betrayed.
Allegedly went to prison.
Yeah, we don't know if that's true.
Well, actually, no, he did. He did go to prison. He did. That was...
But it was in Finland for scamming.
In Finland, yeah, for scamming.
Yeah, he did go to prison.
But yeah. So he actually did go to prison, but just not in the circumstances that he claimed. But yeah.
As they say in a Russian proverb, like a lie is best concealed between two truths. Oh, gosh. Anyway.
Oh, the other thing is, like, beware of men who say things that it's like, she even says, like, oh, it's like exactly what I wanted to hear, or he's telling me exactly what I wanted to hear, right? So if a guy's and we talk about future faking on FDS all the time, when a man's promising you the world, oh, we're going to get married, we're going to have babies, all this kind of stuff. That's another thing that sets off my pattern recognition with men, is if they're making all these grandiose promises and stuff, I'm like, what's your agenda? It just makes me suspicious. So definitely beware of men. If you feel like it's too good to be true, it probably is.
A man who's got good intentions, he might know that he wants to marry you, to have a family with you early on, but he'll never say that because he understands that he also still needs to vet you properly. So even if, for example, my brother-in-law always said that he knew that he wanted to marry my sister pretty much straight away, but he didn't then go and say, like, let's get married or we'll get married one day. It still took a while before he eventually made the proposal because he was vetting as well. So yeah, and also if a guy is coming out with things, because I read the text messages and it was your typical scammer language as well, like honey, I love you, like all that stuff like that. It's quite generic as well. But if he's willing to say that to you early on, then he's likely said that to other women early on as well.
Yeah.
So you need to put that into perspective too.
Yeah, it's classic love bombing. This entire setup and execution of the scam relied on that early onset love bombing.
Yeah.
From whisking her away to a foreign country, wining and dining her, sending her gifts. Early on, he was sending her like bouquets of flowers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really tough because I know a lot of women want they really want the love fantasy, and they're really, I mean, and I'm not going to shame women for like if they want a guy that has money to take them places, right? So I get why just having the signifiers of being able to provide for her, being able to send her gifts, being attentive is so special, because like so many men are just not even,
and so few men are like that.
so few men are like that. And because most of the guys who are trying to have sex with you aren't nearly as suave about it, I suppose I should say. Like most of them are kind of crass.
Oh, come over to my apartment for Netflix and chill, and we'll fuck on the mattress on the floor kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
That's like, the bar for men is so low that it doesn't take much for a man to seem like, oh, wow, he's this like amazing high value man kind of thing, right? It's really easy to get swept off your feet in that kind of dating culture.
Yeah.
Which is why we say don't take low effort dates. Like I'm not saying every guy's going to be a billionaire who's going to buy you caviar, but it shouldn't be like such a huge deal that a guy takes you to a nice restaurant, right? Like,
but didn't he even ask them on a coffee date? Like they went to a fancy hotel to drink coffee.
Yeah.
Was it coffee? I don't remember if it was like Pernilla. I do remember Cecilia saying that she had never seen like the gold fleck caviar before.
Yeah, I think it was...
So I don't remember if that was the first date or like a couple of dates in.
I think it was the second woman who had the coffee date, but still, yeah, like, I mean, even for... People criticize FDS a lot because we tell women to expect men to invest financially. And to be honest, like, a lot of abusive men will use like financial control over women. And so I want to be very clear that like, we like it when a man invests, but just because he invests in you is not automatically, it doesn't automatically put him in the clear, right? When we say high value men, we're not just talking about looks or talking about money. We're also talking about character, right? And so a billionaire who is attractive, but is also cheating on you and scamming you and, you know, doing all this stuff behind your back, that man is low value.
Billionaire quotation marks.
In fact, this man is literally negative value. Like, he actually put all of these women in debt, right? He's actually negative value because he had such a negative impact on their life, right? So, yeah. I mean, just keep in mind, like, even if he seems too good to be true, if he's doing all these grandiose displays, you know, you definitely appreciate it, I guess, but like, you know, don't like allow yourself to be swept away.
Yeah, pace yourself. Like start setting boundaries and see how he reacts.
To me, even just the fact that he was that busy was a red flag. Like, I wouldn't want a relationship with someone who's always flying out and being in different countries and doesn't have any time for me kind of thing. Like, even just being that busy to me was a red flag.
And to be fair, that was another tell as well, is that like long distance relationships, man alive, you have to be careful. You have to be so careful. It seemed like they were never in the same place, Cecilia and Simon. You know, for anything like longer than a couple of days, he would fly her out. It just seemed like the whole relationship was long distance.
Yeah.
Just like Lila said, if somebody is just like genuinely too busy to be in the same location as you, because there are some jobs, like if they're a pilot or whatever, where they are flying like around a lot, but you just need to approach such relationships with caution, and you need to doubly vet the person that you're with. I think given the intensity and the speed of the relationship, it was way too quick, considering that they weren't even in the same place for most of the time.
Yeah. And I also, a vetting strategy that I'd strongly advise women is don't allow men to fly you out. If you want to meet a guy and he lives in a different city than you, especially if he's wealthy, get him to come to you. Like, meet him on your home turf, where you know the city, where, you know, if something happens, you can always bail. You know, you're not trapped in another city kind of thing. And I learned this lesson the hard way. You know, some people, you know, criticize me because I used to be a sugar baby, but I want to be clear that experience is very traumatizing and I wouldn't do it again. And I learned this lesson the hard way, that a lot of these rich guys will fly you out to another country, wine and dine you, to create a sense of obligation. Yeah. And it'll make you feel like I can't say no, or I have to do what he says because, you know, he spent all this money on me, you know, I don't have a choice kind of thing, right? And so...
Isn't that what Scrope Portnoy did? Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he was fairly cheap. He just invited the girls to his house. So I don't even think he did all that. But like, my experience too is like, in addition to the love bombing aspects of men just like dropping a lot of cash early on, is that it is a tell of guys who are trying to like force you into bed. Like, they're trying to create a sense of urgency to have sex with you, and they think of you as like an object to a certain extent. If you let a guy fly you out, if he puts the ticket like in your name and you have a return ticket,
even then, I don't know. If there's something about being on your home turf, like for me personally, something about like being in my city where I know everything. If something were to happen, I always know like where, I always know I can like bail, like, quickly duck out. If there's like an alley or something like that. If the guy's being shady, I know, the actual physical landscape of the city, and I could like escape if something ever happened, right? But if you're in another city, you don't know the area, it's much more dangerous. You don't know the terrain.
You always have him fly out to see you. If you get to the point later, if you're in a relationship and you fly out to see him, then definitely have a destination and a return ticket and make sure it's in your name, even if he pays for it.
Even then, it's just because it's risky, just because if you stay in the same hotel room, he's going to expect you to have sex with him. That's the other thing.
Oh, no. Get your own hotel. That's the other thing. You pay for your own lodging unless he like offers to pay for your lodging. Like even if he pays for your ticket, make sure that you have the ability to have lodging offsite.
Yeah.
And actually, if he doesn't offer that right away, just say like, oh, I'm going to get myself a hotel to just put my stuff or something like that. Make up an excuse about why you need to rate it.
Even then, I don't know. I don't risk it. For me, it's also a power move. It's like, I want to see if he's willing to come to me.
I'm just thinking if he does it and it's successful and you want to like switch roles, like how would you do it in a way that would give you the maximum opportunity to escape if it goes bad? I would definitely not on a first encounter just fly out to see a guy.
Yeah.
But let's say like it's actually like legit. How do you protect yourself? I would say get the ticket in your name. Make sure you have a place to stay that's not his house.
Yeah, don't stay at his house. Just don't do it.
And don't stay longer than like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Maximum. If not 2. I think 2 is actually probably max that I would say.
This is actually another huge red flag, was that he said he wanted her to be his girlfriend, but then she goes on Tinder and sees that he had changed some of his pictures.
Oh, she's even active. Yes, I forgot about that
and
one.
he was like, oh no, I deleted the app. Never give a man an opportunity to lie to you. And I see this all the time where like women, they see something, they see their man doing something shady, and it's like they confront him because they hope that there's some kind of explanation other than him being a cheater or other than him being a piece of shit or whatever. It's like they want it to work out, right? And so they'll just sit there and the man, of course, is just going to lie. Like
he's not going to tell you the truth.
If you catch evidence of him cheating or whatever, right? He's not going to be like, yeah, babe, I'm really sorry. I cheated. Like, no, he's going to lie to you. And here's the thing. If you go into that with the mentality of wanting to work things out, you're going to believe him. Right?
Yeah.
Don't let yourself get swindled. Don't give men an opportunity to lie to you. Okay? If you have proof of him being shady, like being on Tinder after he wants you to be his girlfriend, that's your answer, sis. Like he's on Tinder after you guys define the relationship. Right?
It's about women being able to trust our intuition. Like something doesn't have to be like, you don't, need to, catch him in the act like Shaggy before you realize something's off, right? If something makes
it wasn't me.
Exactly. If something makes you feel deeply, deeply uncomfortable, then that is something that you should listen to, even if you didn't necessarily catch him in quotation marks. But if it's, made you, double take, or if, you feel like he's going behind your back, that is reason enough to cut off the relationship.
Yeah. Trust your gut, ladies. Like if your intuition is telling you something isn't right, it's probably not. Okay. And I feel like society sets women up to fail all of the time by telling women, oh, it's probably not like that. Oh, you're probably misreading it. You're perceiving it wrong. Whatever, right? There's this like widespread and individual. There's like the gaslighting that's on the individual level as well as on the widespread societal level. And more women need to just embrace their inner intuition, because you're probably right.
Exactly. Every single time I've ignored my intuition when it comes to a guy, it has always ended badly.
So the next part of the story is where I feel like 95% of women would have been like, you got me fucked up right now, which was the whole incident with Peter being attacked and those fake staged pictures.
Blood.
Peter is such a bad actor. I was looking at the pictures like, how did anyone fall for this? Like, he doesn't even look
at Peter down.
But he looked Peter down. But Peter did he look hurt? Like, he looked like he was so clearly acting in the pictures. Is it just me, or were they really bad? I was cracking up watching the pictures of Peter allegedly suffering.
I mean, I do think it's plausible that he could have gotten actually injured. I mean, he had like actual like scars and stuff, like stitches on his forehead and stuff. So I think like most likely
that can be done. Oh, that can be done with makeup though. That's not difficult. Like Hollywood.
Makeup, yeah, and it looked like makeup blood.
I mean, look at Hollywood, for example.
I mean, they were in the ambulance. It looked somewhat realistic, but what I think happened is most likely they got in some kind of physical confrontation, either like at the club or something unrelated to it. Was they could have gotten into a conflict, but it wasn't because of his enemies, quote unquote enemies, right? It most likely it was caused by something else, and when it happened, they're like, oh, let's just take pictures. We can use this later, kind of thing,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I thought the pictures were fake, like, period. But even so, we preach this till we're blue in the face. Like, never involve yourself in a man's business, period. Right? Best case scenario is if, like, he's actually on the up and up, you're still doing, like, free labor for him. Right? And then also, like, if anything happens, you're now liable. Like, what happened with this credit card scam he ran through Cecilia.
Yeah, like, never invest in a man's business. Until you're married, the money should be flowing in one direction and one direction only, okay? From the man to the woman.
But also, of all the friends that this billionaire supposedly has, he has to ask a woman he met off Tinder a month ago to float him, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. Like, they were only dating, like, a month.
Yeah, also the fact that he said, like, oh, my enemies are tracking my credit card statements, like, that is not how things, like, work.
Right.
Right? Like, if the police can't even arrest, if the police are so incompetent they can't even figure out which flight he's on so that they can arrest him, there's no fucking way your quote-unquote enemies are tracking your credit card, okay? Just get a different credit card. That's on the bank. Like, what is the bank involved in, involved in his enemies or whatever? Like, it's just so unbelievable.
But it was very, very odd to me that she didn't ask that many follow-up questions and was just really, really scared because of the Peter situation. I guess he tried to make it seem like she was in danger too.
Yeah.
So that
was actually part of it. I think he got her to feel like, oh, I'm kind of in on this, like, I'm in danger too, kind of thing. And, keep in mind also that fear is a very powerful emotion, and when people are afraid, it actually, like, shuts down your ability to think critically when you're in that kind of fight or flight mode. And men often do manipulate women's fears against them to cause them to act against their own self-interest. A good example of this, in Right-Wing Women, Andrew Dworkin talks about how the right manipulates women's anxieties and fears in order to get them to put their own interests last and put, like, basically white men or right-wing men, first, or to basically prioritize the men in their life over their own interests by manipulating their fears and their anxieties. And so that's another red flag, is if a man is trying to make you feel afraid, either for him or of him, like, or just of other things in general, like, that is another huge red flag.
Yeah, he sent her pictures of, like, bullets in the mail. Like, he started saying, like, they're sending me pictures of bullets in the mail. And, like, that's the time when you go, man, you got a lot going on right now. Talk to you later.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'd strongly advise most women, like, that's the other thing, is, like, this is why you shouldn't feel a sense of obligation to men just in general, because as soon as they start going in with, like, I'm involved in criminal activity kind of thing, that's when you go, well, that sounds like you're going through a lot right now. Like, best of luck with that. Bye.
Right. So another aspect of this scam, obviously the initial scam was with Cecilia, was the scam that he ran on Pernilla. So basically the setup was pretty much the same, except for I think he took Pernilla on the coffee date, and then he later brought his baby mama on a vacation that he took.
No, that wasn't a baby mama. That's a different woman. He brought a Russian model. That was another weird fucking thing, is he brought a Russian model with him. And then, like, this other random woman who's his friend. I don't know.
Okay. So Pernilla said she didn't want to be involved because, like, he went out to a club and was, like, buying bottles and was attracting the champagne girls, I think she called them. What did she call them? Basically, like,
she called them champagne girls. Yeah,
champagne. Like, basically the women that, like, show up when guys are, like, making it rain at rich clubs and, like, are only there to keep drinking and hanging out. And I was like, yes, that's how you do it with men like that. Like, go in there, get your drinks.
The champagne girls in this situation were smart. Yeah, just get your bag and go.
They were smart. That's how they do it. Like, a lot of these guys, some of these guys have the money they're spending, other guys don't. Let me put it that way. And then 90% of these guys, like, they're tricking money around because, like, obviously they're trying to attract women and trying to, like, if you're trying to have a relationship with a guy like that, and he's doing that, he's going to cheat on you for sure. So first of all, with the whole Pernilla, for sure. Like, cause he's really in the like ostentatious phase, and he wants the attention on him. But like the vast majority of these women are there for a good time, not for a long time, because they know that what these guys are about. Like they're either trying to attract women with their money only, so they might sit around and like hang out for like a couple of handbags, but the only women that are going to keep hanging out with these guys long term are like sex workers who are like trying to get transactional money from them, or
gold diggers.
Yeah, gold diggers.
And honestly, no disrespect to gold diggers. I honestly think that's a very highly esteemable profession, as being a gold digger.
I'm not mad at them.
I'm not mad at gold diggers. I'm saying that that's actually a better strategy than this like weird, like, you know, sense of obligation that these other women feel to him, like that they need to save him and loan him money. Like, that's just bizarre.
And something I saw on Twitter, which was kind of made my heart drop a little bit, but I think is correct, is that it seemed like Simon was scamming like the quote unquote regular women so that he could impress the models who he actually wanted. So like all of the regular women's purses, they were reaching in their purses so that he could wine and dine Russian models.
So he could get the woman that he wanted, because it didn't seem like Pernilla was a scam. She just dumped him when he got arrested.
Exactly. Like, and when she was searching for the women who were scammed by him, and for the first time he went to jail in Finland, like they look like very regular. A few of them look like older women. So this guy was scamming regular women, and then like all his real women he was trying to impress were models. So
This is another way that I think men manipulate women's like insecurities, is that, you know, career women who are, you know, over the age of 25, you know, women who are maybe not like, you know, 10 out of 10 attractive. A lot of these women feel like that they are made to feel like they're undesirable, and that if they want a man that they have to, you know, kind of go the extra mile, so to speak. I wanted to maybe do an episode on Dirty John. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but we just haven't gotten around to it. And how John Meehan used a similar tactic with Deborah Newell. And, you know, she was I think in her 50s, and was a career woman. And a lot of career women, a lot of like, you know, women over the age of 25, I guess, are made to feel like, they're made to feel undesirable. And so when they do meet a guy who's really into them and he's reasonably high value, they feel like they kind of latch on and be like, you know, this is my last chance. And they feel like they need to put in more effort into the relationship to impress them. And it's like, nah, sis, don't let your insecurities, you know, society's like devaluation of you allow you to get scammed like this. It's really tragic.
Plus, I think both these women came from countries where like going Dutch is normal. Right? So that was the other subtext too, is the 50-50 thing, where I don't know, like women, it seems like the women are more accustomed to like having to pay for things, or like it's normal for men for them to ask for money. Whereas I feel like women from countries where that's not the norm would have like laughed in his face. Like,
there's a saying in Russia, like a man's wallet is for everybody, or is for the group, a community resource, whatever, and the woman's wallet is private.
Okay, facts.
The facts, like, right? Like, if he tried that with like a Russian woman, she would have just laughed in his face, right? But it's actually really unfortunate to me, how, you know, Nordic women, German women, and Dutch women, they feel like, you know, if they want to be empowered, or if they want like an equal relationship, that they have to financially contribute to the relationship, right? And so I'm sure these women were thinking like, oh, he's already spent so much money on me, and he's a billionaire, you know, I have to contribute financially somehow too, right? And that's another thing, like, just to stop feeling obligated to men. Like, God, just reject that feeling altogether. I highly recommend women just shift their mindset such that you feel like men owe you shit.
Yeah.
Like, don't feel like you owe men shit.
You don't.
Understand that they owe you shit. They're the ones who are trying to impress you. You're the interviewer here, okay? You know? But yeah.
And then what was the second thing, like, where he tried to convince her to get an apartment for him for $15,000?
So he said after like a month or so, let's move in together. And he basically gave her like a blank check of up to $15,000 per month in rent. So she was going around all these apartments, you know, doing viewings, and she even put in an offer on an apartment. I'm not sure how she did that, because the houses that she was going around in London are like diplomats' quarter, basically places that only diplomats who are being funded by their government can afford. I was actually born there, just saying, just a bit of flex. Anyway, so yeah, and I'm just, and again, it was just that pacing of the relationship was just way too quick. And
Yeah.
but to be honest, I'm not sure if the documentary left certain things out, because I don't know how she came to believe he could afford a $15,000 apartment, for them to move into. I mean, did he send her money? Apart from like the private jet and the fancy dinners and all that, but did she get any money out of him? I don't know. It was just a bit random.
That's the thing, is like he was spending this money on her, but she didn't actually see cash, right?
Did she see any of that money? I'm not sure if it wasn't clear if she did.
No, I'm sure he was just using another woman's credit card to buy. That's the thing. Imagine going on a date with a guy and use another woman's credit card to pay for it, right?
Well, that's what he did with Pernilla. So like all the money he was using to take Pernilla on trips was Cecilia's money.
That was actually the worst part of this show, was that when the part where he's in Mykonos and the documentary cuts between like Pernilla talking about all the, expensive dinners and clubbing and all this like fun travel experiences that they're having, interspersed, cut back and forth with Cecilia like crying over being financially ruined. That gutted me.
Yeah.
Again, this is why you shouldn't owe shit to men, okay? Because they do shady shit like this. Right?
If I was in Pernilla's situation, because Pernilla kind of was fine all the way up until she took out $30,000 of her own money. Like that's when like most of the Russian models would have bounced like, oh man, I don't have it. Like, and then bounced out of his life and enjoyed like the free meals and everything. Right? Because like she didn't pay for anything for a while. So he ran a much longer con on her than he did on Cecilia. It seemed like all that happened with Cecilia like over the course of a month.
Yeah, I think Cecilia, because she mentioned like, the Disney thing, and she seemed like the romantic, she seemed a lot more gullible maybe, so he thought he could afford to do an accelerated pace on her because he saw her as a more, profitable mark, so to speak. Whereas Pernilla seemed to, she seemed to have maybe not like necessarily boundaries, but like the fact that she was like, oh, she didn't get romantically involved with him, right? So he couldn't afford to play the same game with her.
But that's the danger and I always say, or I've always believed that just because a guy, he may not be into you sexually, that doesn't mean that he's not using you. And you have to be really careful of that. That's just the danger with friendships with men, is that generally speaking, like men aren't raised to be equitable and fair in their dealings with women. And people can apply this context to relationships, but for some reason they think that men act differently in friendships, and they just don't. Like, it's not the same. So, and a lot of women seem to think, oh yeah, well, my male friend, he's great because he doesn't want anything sexually, which may be true, but that doesn't mean that he's not using you in other ways. That doesn't mean that he's not taking money from you, like in, Pernilla's case, or he's not using you as a free therapist or a dumping ground for his emotions or an ego boost. Like, you just really, really need to be careful. And you also need to really, 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 really vet your male friends. I personally can't be bothered to do that on a mass scale. So that's just why I have very, very few of them.
See, I have a different strategy. For a couple of years, I mean, now I'm in a relationship, so I can't do this anymore. But for a couple of years, I did basically like monetize my male friendships, like my male orbiters. So again, same energy that you would have, same energy that I would have in a relationship, right? It's like, don't have any kind of relationship with men, whether it's romantic or otherwise, if you're not benefiting from it. Like, duh.
But I can say the male friends I do like keep around bring immense benefit to me. But I just keep the circle small because generally speaking, if we accept that most men aren't good relationship material, then they're also not good friendship material, because a friendship is also a relationship, just a different kind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's guys that can really afford that lifestyle. Generally, it comes with some kind of price. That's the thing. There are men that are that wealthy, but then there's men who aren't that wealthy, but they just are like the type of guys that do nice things. So they spend the money and don't mind like your company behind it. Mm-hmm. The problem is first of all, not being able to tell the real guys from the scammers. And then like all of these compliance tests, failing them. Like you didn't recognize the compliance test to know that like you were the mark in the situation.
Wait, what?
Right?
I don't get it.
Okay. So like, I'm trying to think of like the difference between a rich guy who was not a scammer, who wanted to take you out and wanted to treat you the nice things he has, versus a quote unquote rich guy. a fake rich guy that was trying to scam you.
Oh, how to tell the difference between a real rich guy and a fake rich guy?
Yeah, exactly. Because there are guys that are like, they're deep in credit card debt, they don't have shit, and they're just like, they're faking the funk, so to speak, and or it's a long part of a long con, a long scam. And it's not just Simon that does this. There's been a couple other like really high profile Tinder swindlers too, of guys who were essentially like faking that they had a certain lifestyle, but they were actually scamming people either through Ponzi schemes or like fake business courses and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, like the Fire Festival.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. But he's a perfect example. He scammed like men and women. He scammed a bunch of people.
He scammed everyone, yeah. So many people, like top investors as well. Elizabeth Holmes is another one.
Exactly.
She scammed like, fucking, is it a 5-star general, James Mattis, for goodness sake?
But like in a dating context about like how you tell the rich guys that are just like treating you nicely.
First of all, if he's really wealthy, he shouldn't be asking you for money. That's like probably the first red flag. And I don't care what the reasons are. Incredibly wealthy people are generally incredibly well connected with other wealthy people, right? So the fact that he didn't have any other billionaire friends or millionaire friends or whatever
to bail him out,
to borrow money from, and he's borrowing money from this like just ordinary like middle class kind of girl, that's a sign of a Splenda daddy, okay?
And if you look at the amounts he was borrowing, like to the average person, it's a lot of money, but to a billionaire, like $30,000 is chicken change. Like you can probably find that in the floor of their mansions or in their apartments. Why is he borrowing
their bathtub is probably worth that much. Like
exactly. Why is he borrowing and also he even said to Pernilla, "Oh, I can give you one of my watches in to replace the money that I should have sent by transfer."
It was fake.
But why couldn't he? Yeah. But if it was real, like why couldn't he sell the watches in the first place?
Right. Exactly.
Like, to raise money.
Yeah, like why couldn't he just hand her a stack of cash, right? So,
but I mean, I'm not trying to blame these like women for not seeing it, because I think that the way he laid up the con, they were so emotionally invested and so worried about him that they just weren't really thinking it like through properly. Because it's true, like if your friend is saying, "Look, I'm gonna be killed if and I need financial help to to not die," then you would want to do it. And he just completely preyed upon their caring instinct.
That's what I mean. I think if it wasn't for FDS, I could have fallen for this scam, right? Like, I actually see, I'm not blaming these women. I actually identify with them somewhat. I think it's really unfortunate, but I do feel like society sets women up to fail by, insisting women give men the benefit of the doubt, by idealizing romance, by making women feel like they owe things to men, and that, the whole 50-50 relationship mentality kind of thing. Concealing male scrotery or like downplaying it, or like, oh, not all men are like that kind of thing, right? Like your default should be to not trust men, and it's his job to earn your trust. Whereas, again, like a lot of these women, and I only think that way mostly because of FDS, actually, right? Yeah. A lot of these women who maybe didn't get that information or who weren't raised in that way to be, skeptical of men, right, are so much more easily swindled. And so I don't blame these women. I blame the greater society that allows these sorts of conditions to happen.
And I also want to bring up like his reaction to when she finally did start setting boundaries, and how he started like, "You don't want to make me into a powerful enemy," and like freaking out.
Oh, that was fucking terrifying. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. When you're vetting men, if she had set boundaries early on, that would have revealed itself. Yeah. Again, setting a boundary and then seeing how he reacts, because a fake rich guy is trying to do different things to test compliance and your ability to go along with the scam and the ruse. More often, a guy who probably has the wealth, if you turn it down, if you don't want to do something, if you want to go somewhere else, he should be reasonably open to that. Right? There shouldn't be like a sense of urgency or like a poor reaction to you setting boundaries in the way that Simon did. So I feel like that was also like one of the major tells, is that like she didn't set any boundaries. It doesn't seem like she set any boundaries with him prior. And so then when she finally did start trying to set boundaries, she saw his true colors. But I'm like, if you would have did that shit like up front, and even if it was a small boundary, like, "I can't see you tonight," he would have either disappeared or he would have started to show his colors then.
Yeah, like the fact that the moment she started to set a boundary, he's like, "What the fuck is this bullshit?" And started, that's another huge red flag in general. It's like, always beware of people, and it's not just men who do this, women do this too sometimes, where if they get confronted over a lie, or, they feel like they're cornered or something, they'll do this like disproportionate, over the top angry response. to try to get you to back down, to try to get you to, doubt yourself. That's another thing that always is like a pattern recognition mode thing for me, is if I have a relatively minor conflict with someone and they respond by blowing up at me, they're probably wrong, right? But a lot, because of female socialization, a lot of women in that situation will be like, oh, am I the bad guy? Am I wrong? Kind of thing. Like women are taught to internalize blame and so on, right? So that's the other red flag for women to be aware of.
Yeah. So these are little tells that were there along the way prior to him even asking for money, or even at least the vetting strategy she could have done to like see how sincere this guy was about her, but also like about his entire life and whether he's a narc. If he'd ever responded with like, oh, this is your last chance, or I'm not going to be here tomorrow, or any type of like threat, that's not a real rich guy.
Yeah.
At all.
Or even if he is rich, he's a toxic person, right? And you wouldn't want to date him anyways. And in fact, like a man who is both rich and toxic are the most terrifying of all. Sure. Like a rich guy who's sort of like maybe bumbling and like, not like actively toxic, generally sort of means well. He's probably all right. But a man who's both powerful, rich, and a narcissist, fucking run. You cannot
win. He's got too much power.
You can't win. The only way that you can win is to avoid them altogether. Trust me.
This is so heavy. So what?
Take my word for it. I learned these things the hard way. Okay. By the way, I want to say, I see this as like a educational opportunity. And so when we say like, oh, the woman should have done this or woman should have done that, it's not to blame the woman. It's to be like, oh, these are some things that women should watch out for, because, these women, they were very brave actually in coming forward, and they got a ton of backlash. Tons of people calling them gold diggers, gullible, dumb. Oh, she only saw his money. She deserved it. That kind of stuff. So it took a lot of courage for these women to come forward, and I'm really glad they did, because they wanted to make it so that other women wouldn't get scammed by him. And I want to sort of take that a step further. And not only do I want women to not get scammed by Simon, I want women to not get scammed by any men, right? Like this needs to be widespread knowledge for all women. Yeah. All women need to know these things. And so I'm actually really grateful to these three women for coming forward with their story.
Because it's so easy to, to call these women stupid. They were dumb, because the amounts are, very astronomical. But how many people, watching this documentary have, loaned somebody money, whether it be a friend or a boyfriend or a husband or whatever, and they didn't get it back? Like, there are so many women who are basically doing, what these three women did in the documentary for men every single day. And it's only because the amounts are a lot smaller that people aren't talking about it. So I just want to talk about the finance side of it. And, in terms of the fact that Cecilia gave him her credit card, the fact she was taking out loans in his, for him, the fact that they were transferring huge sums of money to him, even though he hadn't paid back the original sum. I worked in finance for an extremely long time, and one of the golden rules was that trust nobody when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. So I don't tend to like to loan money. I give money. So if somebody says, can I, loan 20 quid? I'll be like, no, you can have it. And this might sound weird, but it allows me to set financial boundaries, because if I cannot let that money go, as in if I would be in trouble if I didn't see that money again, I just say no. So if a guy did ask me for £5,000, I'm not going to give him £5,000. So it will be no. Like a high value person, that he wouldn't ever be comfortable with you getting into debt on his behalf.
Or asking for money, period. What kind of man, asks him for money?
He was asking this woman to pawn her car, to sell her house, the audacity.
Period.
But at the same time, he knew, in fact, he even suggested that she takes out loans, Cecilia, that she took out loans after he'd maxed out her credit card. A high-value man would actually never do that. And if a guy is comfortable with you getting into debt to help him, that means he's not planning on sticking around, because, why would he want to marry somebody who's just saddled with debt? And unfortunately, Cecilia fell into the trap of believing, and she even said, well, I'm his girlfriend. Of course he's going to come to me for money.
He's a billionaire, sis.
He's a billionaire, but also that's a dangerous way to think when you are with a man, because ultimately you are taking out the loans in your name. The credit card is in your name. That means the the liability for paying back the debt is 100% on you. And the thing is, people were asking on social media, oh, he's not gone to prison yet. Why not? Why not? And it's because the transactions that he got out of these women, so Cecilia's credit card and the transfers, they were done legitimately, as in, like, he didn't, nick her credit card and start using it. She gave him the card, and every bank will tell you not to do that, because even if you add an additional card holder, which you can do up to 4 people, the person whose name is on the credit account is 100% responsible for the whole bill. So, you might be thinking that you're doing Bonnie and Clyde, but actually he's just running up debt in your name, and he can and often do. They will leave you holding the bag. I mean, I've known so many. I used to see it all the time in the bank where a woman would take out, something like a phone contract for her partner because he couldn't get credit, which, by the way, if the bank wouldn't loan somebody money or a company wouldn't loan somebody money because they're too high risk, then neither should you, by the way.
Neither should you.
Then neither should you. That's just a general financial lesson, because ultimately as well, if people default on their loan to the bank, they've got buffers, they can, they've got the means to pursue somebody and make their life hell for not paying it back. I mean, you don't have those means. You can go to a small claims court, but it's a long process, and ultimately it's a civil matter, because the bank will see that Cecilia authorized the transactions, which she did. She said that she did them.
If she tried to sue him, there would be all these recordings of her being like, oh yes, I'm spending this money kind of thing. She would have no case.
And also she gave her card to someone else.
Yeah, and I'm I said I would straight up have at that point called the credit card company and said it was stolen. Just straight up cut your losses.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's what she should have did.
But you guys you just have to be extremely financially savvy and just trust nobody when it comes to your finances. Your credit is something that belongs to you and only you. Don't let any person, whether that's a guy, a family member or whatever, screw that up for you. Because now Cecilia, she's still got 8, creditors on her back for the remaining amount because the bank want their money back. Just not a risk that you can afford to take. And personally, I've never seen a scenario where a woman has taken out a loan for a man and it's ended well.
Yeah. You as an individual never loan someone money unless you're willing to lose that money. If you can't afford to lose that money, don't do it. It's where do you... Yeah, I've never heard, like you said, I've never heard of a situation where a woman has taken out a loan for a man and it's ended well for her. The only exception I can think of is if you're married and you get a mortgage together or something like that. That maybe makes sense. But even in cases where you're married and she's paying off his student loans or, a lot of guys like that. And, people hate on FDS for saying we don't date broke bums. But here's the reality is just due to male nature, a broke man will exploit you. That's just how they be, right? If you don't want to be financially exploited by a man, you can be financially exploited by a rich man, but you're much, 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 much more likely to be financially exploited if he's a homosexual.
We used to get so much shit from customers who would be if we queried a transaction, they'd be screaming at us down the phone, saying, why are you asking me my date of birth? I actually give a shit and not just, I'm just doing my job. But it's to protect you. At one point, American Express, they were blocking the transactions because it was clearly flagging in their system that this is abnormal, activity. So...
and she got on the phone being no, unblock it. No, raise the limit for my...
No, raise the limit, yeah. And it's just,
Girl.
you just have to protect your finances so well, and don't let any man anywhere near your credit for what... I mean, I don't care if his pet is going to pass away tomorrow if you don't send him the money. You just need to protect yourself. And some of it's not even true. If a guy's in distress and he can't access funds, sometimes it's not always true.
I'm in distress. My enemies, they're after me. They're after Peter. Send me $70,000.
That honestly sounded like something out of a religious film, when they're praying. I don't know if you got this right growing up.
Got a lot of enemies.
So I went, yeah, and they were literally praying to cast out the devil all night. That's what it reminded me of. Our enemies.
Wait, what? me non-religious person not understanding the joke. What?
It's just like because I grew up in like evangelical like Baptist place, there was a lot of almost, I mean, I call it, for example, negative praying, where they pray against their enemies to not destroy them, as opposed to praying for like happy, positive stuff. So they would spend all night casting out demons and anyone. I remember my dad told me this. My dad told me this story years ago of how. Sorry, I think like one of us like stole one of his drinks. Stole one of his drinks or something, and he was like, okay, if no one owns up to it, I'm gonna read this verse in the Bible that if I read it, then the person who did it will like shit themselves in Brooklyn.
Wait, so your dad says, if you don't tell me who it is, I'm gonna pray, and then the person who did it will shit themselves in public.
In public, it's like humiliation. It was complete bollocks. But yeah, it was stuff like that.
There's a lot of stuff in the Bible where like the prophets like curse their enemies and stuff, and so like a lot of
yeah. So when it's like my enemies are after me, just like my enemies, it just reminded me of something out of like the Bible or religion, where there's just this like vague conspiracy to destroy him. even now, like he's still saying this documentary is my enemies. My enemies.
Yeah, he said, I'm gonna sue you for defamation. This documentary is my enemy. My enemies.
My enemies is like having haters, right? Like, so just think of like the ridiculousness of being like, my haters are after me.
Like, mate, haters are gonna hate, right? You gotta get a thicker skin,
my
bro.
enemies.
I want God to destroy my enemies. There's people that like pray for this shit, like them.
Pray to God to destroy my enemies. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's why it was funny. That's why it was funny. But instead of like praying to God, he just said, my enemies, give me £75,000 and they'll go away.
My enemies.
Jeez. But that's what I think that's what Ro is referring to when he says his scamming skills were mid.
No, but it's just like, I mean, it is kind of like a televangelist, right? Where they're like, if you just buy this blessed water for $13,000, all of your enemies will be vanquished.
Yeah.
The Lord will make sure.
No, but televangelists are scammers, right? So that makes sense that they would use the same tactics.
I mean, honestly, we laugh, but that's exactly what happened. Like, that happens in churches all the time. It's not even a televangelist. It's just like, that is so common just to hear, like, if you pay £5,000, all your problems will go away. Like, it's really, really common.
So they pass the collection plate around and they'd be like, as much as you give, that's how much God is going to vanquish your enemies.
Yeah. And did you ever get like like the priests or the pastors in the church like eyeballing how much everyone gave? It was
like judging you for how much you give.
It was like my grandfather used to, for that reason, he used to break like it was like a for example, like the equivalent of like $100 into like $1 notes, and just put in like 10 notes, so it looked like he was putting in more.
It's like, how great is your faith?
When he was putting in $10.
They always tie it like, if you really believe God is great and he's here to vanquish your enemies and put you up on the mountaintop to you to see your success and be exalted among others, put $75,000 in the collection plate.
Yeah, if you really believe in God, you'll drain your bank account. You know, if you're really a Christian, you'll give you your entire paycheck.
Legit. This is what people do. To be honest, I think we should do an episode on like religious scams, because I can honestly see parallels between what Simon did and, you know, what happens in the church. So they'll often also start with like the church sob story. I don't know if you had it as well, Ro, but I went to a church, like my uncle's church, and I was in Nigeria, and they had a special priest for offering. So the music went to like that, you know, that sad church music. And
Yeah, the sad church organ music, yeah.
And they were saying like, oh, the building's falling down, and, you know, we may not be able to like basically starting like the whole like, you know, bullshit prayer pressure. And then, we need, 1 million naira. So we need to raise it like today.
Sense of urgency.
Yeah, it's the same tactics, honestly.
If you don't donate money immediately, that ceiling fan above you, that's going to fall. And it's God's way of telling you to donate money. You have to do it today or else, God will be mad at you or something. I don't know. Like,
I mean, the last thing I would also like to say on this as well is be aware of the forced teaming aspect of when a guy uses the we too quickly.
Everything, that was the other thing I noticed actually, and I wrote down, like him saying like, everything we're going through together.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to pay off later. I'll make it up to you.
It's really spoken about extensively in The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker, which is a very good read. But basically, like, beware of a man, quickly using the we and like doing the forced teaming like too soon.
I get this a lot, actually. Men do this to me all the time, and I'll even just call them out. I'm like, what's we? Who is we?
It's essentially to disarm you. And in this case, in the case of the Tinder Swindler, is to make them invested in his, I guess, like non-existent problems. So they will be invested in being a part of the solution to it.
I want to talk about the ending and why it's so great. I want to talk about why. Okay, first, the only thing that made this not a happy ending for me was the fact that he only spent 5 months in prison and is apparently now like, he's back on Instagram flexing, and he has an Israeli model girlfriend kind of thing. And I'm like, girl, like, what this guy's like, his deal, right? Like, how could you fall for this?
She's clout chasing.
Maybe, yeah, but still, I'm just like, yeah, girl, like, why? I'm kind of pissed off at any woman who would date him at this point, just because it's like a betrayal. I see it as a betrayal to female class solidarity. The whole reason why these women came out, these 3 women, was because they wanted his face to be plastered all over the place so that, other women wouldn't fall for that shit. And so the fact that he's still being rewarded with women dating him, that kind of pisses me off. But I want to talk about why this is a happy ending, mostly, in my opinion. First of all, like, the part where the 3 women, like, join forces against him, I was like, queen. It just makes me feel like it's just a very important reminder that, like, we as women, individually, we might be weak against men, but together, we will be unstoppable, okay? And it's, to me, just a lesson in, like, the importance of women being able to compare notes. Hey, what the 3 women did when they finally got together, they did the same thing that we do on FDS, which is like, oh, he did this to me. No way, he did this to me too. It's like a sort of like a Me Too kind of moment, right? And once you realize, like, hey, this guy's playing all of us kind of thing, that's when you kind of like can turn it back on him, right? And I want to talk about Eileen for selling his clothes.
Yeah, so basically with Eileen, she figured out that even though he doesn't actually have the money, so she was dating him this entire time. She'd been dating him for over a year when she was the one
who was with him the longest. She was with him for 14 months.
Yeah, and she was dating him when he was gallivanting with both Cecilia and Pernilla. And then she finds out that he's a scammer when they publish the article about the Tinder Swindler. And of course, he denies everything, et cetera, and she confronts him about it. But because he got cut off from his regular credit card scam, he didn't have any money anymore. So he kept asking Eileen to send him money. And so what she says she's going to do is to sell all of his clothes.
She's like, I'm his only person left. He has no one else to turn to. I'm like, power move.
100%. So she starts selling his clothes, but she says she's going to send him the money and then never does. Right. And so he starts to get progressively more aggressive and aggressively starts freaking out. And then like
acting like a psycho. Yeah.
Going back and forth between like psychotic behavior and then trying to like coax her into like, oh, we're together. Oh, baby, I love you so much, et cetera, et cetera.
And then he becomes the homeless king.
Yeah. From Prince of Diamonds to homeless king.
I'm homeless king.
He's staying in 1-star hostels and stuff. Yeah. The thing that I thought was the most entertaining was her ability to like pretend to be cool with him. And I do this sometimes too with men, often in like an office environment, is I'll be friendly to guys who are either hostile to me or who I want to destroy. And men are fucking dumb. Like, they just can't tell. Like, I could just be to his face being like, like, that's so funny kind of thing. In my head, I'm like, I'm going to fucking destroy you and you don't even know it kind of thing. And they can't seem to tell, right? So I thought it was really hilarious that she was like pretending to be cool with him just to get him to meet up with her so that she could fill 3 suitcases worth of his clothes and resell them. I don't think because she ended up running up like $140,000 debt for him. So she didn't actually manage to pay back what she had, right? But because she worked in the fashion industry, she was able to resell his clothes for, you know, a decent amount. I think it's kind of a bummer that her scam of him was way more high effort than his scam of these women, right? Like, it's a lot of work actually selling all these items online and stuff. And it's like $100 here, $200 here. It added up to maybe a few $1,000s or whatever, right? But nowhere near what he scammed her of, right? But I do very much like the idea of like scamming the scammer kind of thing. I was like, queen. I also love the imagery, just like from a cinematography standpoint, of like her ironing his clothes to resell while she's reading his phony ass letter. Like his letter about like, oh, we're in this together, babe. I love you so much, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, she's like, cry me a river. Ugh. Queen. Okay. More women need to have this energy. Seriously.
All right, so that's our show. Please check out our website, thefemaledatingstrategy.com, as well as our Instagram @_thefemaledatingstrategy and our Twitter @femdetstrat. And if you'd like to hear more bonus content and more discussion, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thefemaledatingstrategy. We also will definitely be talking about this probably in the Discord. So check us out. Thanks for listening, queens. And for Simon, FDS is one of your enemies.
Be very, very afraid. We're coming for you.
And die mad.
Bye.